Tip number 1. Step up your game. Make your park build a little bit more interesting and unique by giving yourself an extra challenge or rule. I decided to only use the step skin variety in this park to avoid picking the same skins that I always do. I was reminded of how beautiful the Steppe Uranosaurus is, and Steppe is my new favorite skin for the Brachiosaurus. Of course, you can put your own spin on this tip and use it to make building on any island more fun. I have 4 tips specifically for Matanceros coming right up. Hi everyone, and thanks for checking out this video. As I help you build awesome parks, please help me build this channel. Subscribe and ring the bell for more JWE content and my eternal gratitude collector's edition. In my opinion, Matanceros is the most underrated island of the bunch. Because it's such a chill little island, I've been back here a couple of times to build some pretty cool parks, even before the expansion of sandbox mode. So I was happy to return to this island for this tips video. Tip number 2. We have a saying in Dutch. Een goed begin is het halve werk. Which translates to a good start is half the work. If you start something right, the entire process thereafter will be easier, and that is true for Matanceros. The island has a lot of changes in elevation. It's not as pronounced as Isla Muerta, you might say, but it is something you need to tackle first before you place your first building. So use the water brush to quickly find the best plateaus for you to work with. Because the water brush is so much faster than the terrain tool, you can play around a little bit until it is to your liking. You can see what I ended up with by starting at the edges of the map at some choice points. I don't recommend leveling the entire island completely. Tip number 3. Add a river that looks like it's part of the landscape. I feel like most people only use water as a way to keep their dinosaurs alive, which is a valid use, it must be said. But your island kinda ends up looking like it just has puddles on it, something I am guilty of as well. The beauty of Matanceros is in the surrounding mountains with several waterfalls. For this park, I've repeated a trick I've done before. I pretended the waterfall and the body of water beyond the limit of the map continues into my park as a river snaking through, flowing down towards the ocean. I always try to incorporate the island's own geography into my design. You can check out my park tour of my previous build on Matanceros by clicking on the link in the end screen. Tip number 4. Hide the creation lab and ACU behind the mini mountain that pops up in the map. This area is higher than the rest of the map, so it's tempting to place a hotel there. I've certainly done exactly that in the past. But it's kind of a small and awkward area that fits 2 creation labs and the ACU center perfectly. A little raised ridge along the edges of the buildings, topped with some trees, hide them from our guests, which is exactly what we want in a park. Now before we get to the final tip, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a 5-tip video for Nublar as well. We've all been to Nublar so many times that I feel like we all have a pretty good handle on how to build on Nublar. But then again, I do like the idea of completing the entire lineup of maps for this series. Since I am way too indecisive to decide this for my own, I will let you decide. So type Nublar in the comments if you want to see a tip video for it, or Noblar if you don't. Yes, I am forcing you to partake in my horrible word pun. And majority rules. On to tip number 5. You might know that I have a sort of love-hate relationship with the monorail. I like building with the tracks, but I don't really like having these tall tracks snake through my entire park, cluttering up the view, just because guests are too lazy to walk. Like, Jesus dude, it's a dinosaur, put in some legwork. So my tip is, use the monorail sparingly. I actually think you don't need it at all to get 5 stars, which means I was wrong in an earlier video when I said that you can only forego the monorail on Takanya Research Facility. But in this case, I was happy to be wrong. It was a welcome surprise. My transport rating for this park is actually at 0%, yet I still have 5 stars. I added the monorail only to make this part across the river accessible, since building proper bridges isn't a thing in the game, unfortunately. This minimal amount of monorail is just the right amount for Matanceros, in my opinion. One thing I did do to spruce it up just a little bit was build viewing platforms directly underneath the tracks. This makes them look part of the structure, as if they are load-bearing themselves, and I like how the actual pillars of the track frame them. Little touches like this make a big difference in a game that is as limited in design as Jurassic World Evolution is. Which is a shame, but you know, we gotta work with what we got. I hope these tips help you build something special on Matanceros. Have you built on this island in sandbox mode yet, or have you been neglecting the poor thing? Let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to vote Nublar or Noblar so I know if you want me to do a tip video for the final map in the game. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please consider spanking the subscribe button because he's been very, very naughty. Thanks again, and until next time, enjoy the game.